I would like to invite Tony Tenicela, who is the Global Leader for Marketplace Diversity and Workforce Engagement Services at IBM, to deliver the opening keynote.
Thank you, Laj. Good morning, everyone. This is so wonderful to be able to return to incredible India and partake in this historic event here in the capital of India. I want to first thank Srini, Ram, Pride Circle team for your tremendous effort, your passion, your dedication to advancing LGBT inclusion here in this beautiful country, and also for inviting me to participate in today's conference. So, diversity has always been my passion. It's also been an integral part of who I am. I was actually born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the western part of Pennsylvania in the United States. I was born in a Peruvian household, two very loving parents, and that were first, had come over to the United States to realize their dream. I grew up as an only child, and one of the greatest gifts parents gave me was their focus on exposing me to different cultures, experiences, travel, languages, arts, at a very young age. So much so that I viewed life through a multicultural lens all throughout my upbringing. And I realized that the focus on differences really would enable me to embrace my own sense of self and to understand how to accept and nurture my own differences. Sounds like a perfect story, but there was one little gap that I realized that I was not really trying to confront at home, and that was my sexual orientation. And I remember quite vividly, as a young boy, being very hesitant to open up to my parents about my authentic self, and realizing that perhaps I could go out, go out and be myself with my friends. But I realized I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which at the time was a steel city, and it was one of the most conservative cities on the East Coast of the United States. And that's when I realized that I had to really own myself. I had to bring my authentic self not only to the world and to the family, but also just for my own sanity and for my own personal satisfaction. So I realized that I needed to really confront this. And as I went to the university at the University of Pittsburgh, graduated, I decided that I needed to really kind of embark on my own journey. And then I started applying to graduate schools. And I had the opportunity to move to the West Coast, to a little town called San Francisco. And as you can imagine, it was complete extremes, the experience that I had on the West Coast. So I attended graduate school at Berkeley. I had the good fortune of launching a very successful startup for the next 4 years of my career. I went back to business school, moved to LA to learn what I should have learned when I took on that startup. And then here I am with my newly minted MBA degree, realizing what's next, what do I want to do? Well, I realized that I really wanted to work for an employer that really would offer me the opportunity to bring my authentic self. That really resonated strongly ever since I was a boy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So then this happened during my interviews. AV, can you play it?
We are standing together, shoulder to shoulder, all working for one common good. And the good of each of us as individuals affects the greater good of the company.
These words from our founder, Thomas J. Watson Sr., reflect IBM's past and our corporate character today. In 1899, we hired Richard McGregor, an African American, 65 years before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In 1914, we hired our first disabled employee, 76 years before the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. In the 1930s, IBM continued its progressive workplace programs and policies with the arrival of professional women and equal pay for equal work. and promoted its first female vice president, Ruth Leach Amonette, in 1943. Women's careers at IBM have been on the rise ever since. In 1953, Thomas J. Watson Jr. established a policy of hiring people without regard to race, color, or creed, making IBM the first U.S. corporation to issue such a mandate. In the years that followed, this non-discrimination policy was expanded to include religion, sex, gender, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, national origin, genetics, disability, and age. And in 2005, IBM became the first major corporation in the world to include genetics privacy in its non-discrimination policy. We push forward every day, advocating for our employees to provide stability, reassurance, and support. Just as we publicly advocated against the bathroom bills in the United States, so too have we set internal policies to extend same-sex partner benefits in 50 countries. For more than 100 years, from our founders to Ginny Rometty today, we believe that no one should face discrimination for being who they are.
We are privileged to work for a company that's had the opportunity to have an impact on history in so many ways.
IBMers speak with a diverse voice, representing more than 170 countries, encouraging all of us to think.
So as that video nicely captures, you can imagine how overwhelmed I was when I started interviewing with IBM. One big difference, IBM from the rest of the corporate pack, at the recruitment fairs, was the fact that they brought in a quite diverse team of recruiters. And they asked some very impactful questions about, if you join IBM, how could you personally contribute to developing an inclusive culture? Wow, I was shocked by that question. And that's the reason why I chose IBM. 24 years later, I'm very proud to be an IBMer. And for those of you that have worked for IBM, once an IBMer, always an IBMer, you know that that's really true. You know that we walk the talk. You know that that's part of our DNA. Diversity is considered not only a strategic business driver, but a competitive differentiator in our company. We're very proud to say that it's not really considered more of a corporate policy, because corporate policies change. They come and go. It's more about a guiding principle. It's about the way that we actually encourage our employees to bring their authentic selves to work, to feel valued, to collaborate, to be innovative. And it's in that sense of inclusion that helps us drive a culture that really emphasizes value and respect for all, particularly the LGBT plus community globally. So one of the questions I'm always asked, and I was actually asked this last night, and I think you're in the audience today, was what's IBM's secret, right? Since the 1950s, you've been focusing on positioning diversity and inclusion as an integral component of your corporate strategy. What's the secret? What's the recipe for our success? Well, I always say that when I look back at my experience, and I look back at the current leadership strategy for driving diversity and inclusion here within IBM, there are 5 components that really stick out. And I'd encourage all of you to think about how these are relevant into your own respective workplaces. First, leadership accountability. We can't do it alone. Leadership is absolutely vital. It has to be part of driving cultural change, right? At IBM, our executive vice president teams, our executive leadership team, all of them serve as executive sponsors for the diverse constituencies that we serve within the company. Bridget Van Kroligan is our LGBT senior executive sponsor. Bridget is actively involved, always promoting video blog, participating in Pride Month activities, constantly serving as a sounding board and as an ally to help us drive our LGBT inclusion activities in the company. We also rely on our inclusion councils, very senior level set of executives, also helping to formulate. We come together, we formulate the strategy for the upcoming year in partnership with our partners, our suppliers, our employees, top talent. We also rely on out executives all throughout the company. We have the good fortune of having numerous out executives all throughout the world, all serving as role models, all out, being available to the market for interviews to really promote the importance of LGBT inclusion within IBM. and outside of IBM. We also rely on role models, which are non-executives, top talent that are coming up the ranks within IBM. Again, serving as ambassadors, serving as mentors, helping us to really, again, realize that vision of creating that all-inclusive culture within the company. Number 2, technology. IBM, being a leader in technology, realizes the importance of really helping to embrace all the various disruptive technologies that are out there today. We all know them: mobile, social, cloud, cognitive capabilities, right? All of us now live in a world where we are enjoying digital-rich experiences. Now, we have very high expectations now for that type of experience that we have on the internet, right? We want those personalized one-to-one experiences. So at IBM, we've created that kind of environment through cognitive functionality, artificial intelligence, through Watson, where we're able to actually create that personalized one-to-one experience for all employees, for all diverse constituencies within the company. And so each of our communities, including the LGBT community, now also enjoys a dedicated area, on our collaborative platforms where they can actually engage, collaborate, and further activities, for achieving our objectives. Education enablement, number 3. We all live in a world of deep learning. We now live in a Netflix, alt-Banaji, type of world, right? Where we want that personalized one-to-one experience. We want choices. We want recommendations, right? And we now have that ability through our learning platform called Your Learning, where now every employee can go in and actually customize and receive recommendations on the kinds of education they want. I'm happy to report that we actually now have dedicated education modules as part of our Your Learning platform, focused on providing employees, managers, executives the opportunity to become an LGBT ally, learning about our gender transition guidelines, and learning about all the programs and activities that make IBM so special. The next one, number 4, is really looking at channels for activation. We can't do it alone. We know that. We know that IBM has to partner with other multinationals, local enterprises, nonprofits, NGOs around the world, those champions, ambassadors that are very focused on driving LGBT inclusion globally within and outside a company. We have we have an extreme pleasure to work with Open for Business, one of our global partners, in really collaborating together, bringing other multinational corporations together in order to have those frank conversations about what do we need to do, what are some of the challenges that we face in each of the markets that we serve in order to help us drive LGBT inclusion, right? In order for us to address that other, right? Which is so important for us to really encourage our employees to bring their authentic selves to work, authentic selves to the world. And last but not least is social impact. IBM is here to service our customers. We're here to generate revenues and we're here to make a profit. That's the bottom line. But what's really special about companies like IBM is that we're also here to work with all of you to make an impact in society, to view life differently, to really think out of the box, to really help us to understand that all of us in this room offer something very valuable, very special. We contribute to our teams, we contribute to our families, we contribute to society. And IBM has focused on really trying to work very closely with many nonprofit organizations around the world to help us make an impact. One particular example in India is Project Vayati. We had the pleasure of working with many companies here in India. It was launched in Bangalore a few years ago. And it's very, very much a program that's focused on upskilling, empowering, and hiring transgender employees here in India. And I'm happy to report that it's been a very successful program. There's more to come. So with that recipe, what does that mean for all of us? And how does that apply to your respective workplaces? I leave you with 3 specific goals. I challenge all of you here to think about these goals and what you can do as individuals to bring your authentic self to the world, but also help others bring themselves, to the workplace, their authentic self to the workplace. I call them the ABCs. Very simple. A, B, C. A, be accountable, right? One of the things that I learned very early on from my father was we can't just sit around and react. We have to be proactive. We are all diversity champions. All of you being in this audience, participating in this conference, all have a dedication to this topic. Serve as ambassadors. Be proud of it. Really, realize your vision, working with your teams to help collaborate together to really bring this forward in India, right? So be accountable, right? Set goals for your teams, for your company, right? Hold your leadership accountable. Bring in your grassroots leaders, right? Even the entry-level employees have so much passion, or so willing to work with management on driving these goals, right? It's a hybrid approach, top down, bottoms up. Got to bring them all together, right? That's A. B, be bold. For those of you that know me in this audience, I tend to push the envelope a lot. Okay? I tend to be very bold. I tend to really be transparent. I tend to really just push forward the agenda, right? Why? Because if we don't push forward, and if we're not bold, what happens? We either become complacent or we become inactive. Nothing happens, right? So being bold, having the courage to stand up for what you believe in. So standing up for driving diversity and inclusion, right, in the workplace and the marketplace. C, be collaborative, right? It's not about just boasting, oneself as just the only person that knows all, ends all, right? It's more about collaboration. Coming together, working together, supporting organizations like Pride Circle, Open for Business, right? Tenicela, another great organization that's now in India as well, right? Supporting these type of organizations, contributing to those efforts so that we all collectively achieve results, right? So I want to thank all of you for attending and for being those champions and for really helping all of us to bring our authentic selves to work and to life. Because without all of you, those that are allies here, right, it's not possible. For those of you that are part of the community, I applaud your efforts to get involved. And I'll stand right there with you. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. I hope that you're excited, motivated, great stuff happening, lots of great speakers, a lot of good sessions, and I thank you for coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony. It was a pleasure listening to you.